I've decided to make a tier list for some rewards commons because some discussion was about how strong some commons are. So I decided to make a tier list and then I decide, okay, I'm going to just do commentary on why I value each unit the way I do. So I begin. I will start with the Vanguards, with the Citadel Knight, which I consider one of the strongest units in the game, and the reason is it has a lot of life, but actually for its cost, and actually you can ignore it. I think it's the unit that carries Astera and Vanguards as at their strength. I think also that the Citadel Ward is kind of important for its value. Overall, it's still a support unit. It's still its value is how strong it is, what it protects. But I mean, it's so good at supporting units that you want Citadel Knights every time with any plan you have. So yeah, I think they're very strong, very solid. You always want one or two of them in the battlefield. To continue to see that Archer, I consider them somewhere here on the weaker side. Actually, it could be almost be on top of the marginal value units. Because really, the reason I still put it here, despite it could be here, is that it's functional in what it does, and sometimes it's very powerful, especially at game. If you drop it on 2 or 3, it's actually very strong. The problem is that outside of that window, its power starts to drop dramatically. One of the problems Vanguards that didn't have a good ranged game late game or even mid game, and that's because they rely too much on Citadel Archer. So he has a lot of life, but that's not what you want in an archer, especially when you have Citadel Knight to protect. So overall, it still is I think still functional. You can argue that it goes here, but I'm going to put it here for now. The next one is the Temple Priest, which I always think is a solid unit, but sometimes doesn't convince me. I mean, often I just burn them. I only use one sometimes. It feels a little too situational with here, so definitely above the Citadel Archer, but still on the weaker side. Not super convinced about this power level still. So yeah, I think that's a good position. That's a very good, but the stability it requires very situational circumstances, and yeah, I mean when it works, it's not that great. The Citadel Paladin. This will surprise some people that will put it here, but actually, yeah, I also think it's kind of weak. It has great stats, but its ability is so useless that it's just a bag of stats, and I don't think that's enough to carry its power. So overall, it's still functional. It still does do what it has to do, but it feels lacking something, uh, which is an ability that does actually a little less. I don't think it's that great to compensate the lack of ability. Still a good usable unit. Then the fighter, Horde Fighter, I think it's a very solid unit. I know some people disagree, but I think that a lot of people are missing the value of the true power of the fighter is that it has a decent stats and the ability is very random, but you have to appreciate that it can steal positions, and that's the most powerful asset. Um, Often Grognak is not in a great border position, and with the way they can turn around the tables, it's basically stealing positions with the fighter, and that's a very powerful ability, especially for just one magic unit. So because of that, I think it's a very solid unit. I really respect it a lot. The next one is is the charger, which I think is actually on the weaker side too. I don't know exactly where, somewhere there. I mean, you could convince me it goes anywhere here. Um, I don't know. I'm just going to make a call here and put it here, a little above the priest. They're both 0 cost, but its ability is more useful. The problem is you have to choose between not having an ability or having an ability and be kind of weak, which is kind of actually the same situation than the priest. Overall, I think its ability is a little more powerful than the priest, so I will just put it a little above. Um, Again, its ability is very powerful, but 2-1 is too easy to kill, and actually the fact that it doesn't fit well in Grognak maybe don't allow me to value its true power, but so far I think that's where it belongs. The next one is the Smasher, which I think is a very A+. The Smasher is one of the better units to me, I mean, if it's not obviously mathematically, I mean, the stats are fine, it's just stats, it doesn't have a real ability. But it turns out that 4 attack melee is actually pretty good, and its life is deceptively high because it prevents a lot of direct damage like Porsche, like Ember Archer, and because of that, yeah, I think it's better than it looks. It gives options. It gives a lot of options to Grognak, like being able to put so much damage on the table really affects the gameplay in ways that other commons can't. So overall, I think it's a very efficient unit. The Frost Shaman, I think, it's a very controversial unit. Some people will argue it goes there. Some people will put it here. I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't know really. The problem is that the shamans really don't look great when you look at the stats. But it combines so well with Folklory, with Torgen, with Influence, that it feels sometimes like there. But I'm trying to analyze the units more in a vacuum, and I think it's a solid unit, kind of the weaker side, but still solid. You could convince me it goes lower, but it's still pretty solid unit, I think. It gives a lot of life for its cost, and its ability, its attack, sorry, is a little low, but the fact that it can be boosted in so many ways just put them on the solid unit. But you can convince me easily that it goes there, definitely on the bottom of A. Next one is the Border Archer, which again it's an easy strong, but you can convince me it goes there. I'm not fully convinced that it belongs here. It's very subjective, obviously. I think it looks more powerful than this because how well it combines with Avua and its tricks. Like Chant of Power, like a Chant of Entangling, but I think in a vacuum it's still a very strong unit and belongs here. Still on the top, I like it more than Smasher. The high life, the 4 life is a key number. I know that Paladin has to have 4 life, but it avoids more one-shots from most commons, and that's very important. And it's even more when it's ranged, because at range, killing a 4 life unit at range is very, very hard. So it's very easy for the archer to survive 2 turns. In addition to that, the double shot or sweet shot, attacking, it's more than 4 attack, because double attacking has more uses, attacking things that you shouldn't, dividing damage, a lot of things that make, yeah, very strong unit, very solid. If you compare with the Paladin, which goes below, both almost kind of having no ability, but I think the Border Archer damage is better, because it's better than 4. So yeah, even if the Paladin has a slight ability, and the Border Archer needs to prepare or consume abuse to the attack, overall I think the Archer is in a better position. Next one is the Lioness, which will surprise some people, but it's not on solid unit, which you can convince me goes there, but I think it's at the top of the MLS. The reason is, if you think about the unit on a vacuum, it's actually quite weak. I mean, the stats are weak, and its ability to gain life is not, it's not that useful. Um, I mean, it's someone will be surprised because how it's not useful like gaining one life per attack. That's a lot, yes. I'm just saying that doesn't compensate, in my opinion, the low stats it has. But the reason it's still very good is because you can boost it with other sources. So yeah, I think it's at the top of the A, also at the bottom of. You know what? I changed my mind, and right, I think it's going. I mean, it's very close. I'm going to put it here. I think it's fine here. I mean, the fact that you can boost it with other sources is fine. I do think you wouldn't play Lioness unless you have outside sources for boost, but sometimes you do. I mean, you do. There are very good plays with your boosts. So yeah, I think it's kind of on the weaker side, but still a solid unit. The next one is the Rhinoceros. You know, if you would ask me a long time ago where I will put it, I will say somewhere here. Not here, but like this. Some people will be surprised, but yeah, I think actually no, it's a very solid unit. I've been surprised how good it is. The reason I didn't like it is because Trample is not a good ability, and yeah, boosting it doesn't seem the best. Like, if you compare it with the Lioness, where one boost, one life, just a little extra movement doesn't seem that important the one with Trample, but I'm changing my mind. I mean, I've seen pretty crazy turns with Rhinoceros with multiple boosts, which made me reconsider what it can do. The ability to do damage to cannons with just movement is just very powerful. And yes, I think it's a very solid unit, definitely in the top of A, and you're going to convince me that it goes there. I think for now, you just put in the solid unit. The Spirit Mage, which will also surprise a little people, because there is the myth that they consider them weak or not useful, but that's not correct. I actually think they're very solid units, actually better than Lions. Actually better than the Shaman, actually. The reason is that it's very easy to not get good value from them. They do decent damage, and even if they die, they still leave a boost somewhere. And it has other uses. If it survives, it can produce even more boosts, and that adds up. So yeah, I think it's a very solid unit. I don't think it's weak at all. I just don't think it's great in Abua. I think when deck building comes, I'm sure some decks will be very happy to use Spirit Mages. I just think that Abua has so many buff production that it's kind of redundant. That's my complaint about Spirit Mage. It's redundant in the deck, but as a unit, it's a very solid unit in my opinion. Then we go to the Polar Dwarfs. With Ice Wind, I'm going to surprise again some people, which is saying it's at an A, stronger than average. I think the Ice Winds are very scary units, very strong commons. And there are two reasons for this. The first is that they're a support and a combat unit. And as combat unit, they're very scary because you can move, attack, and boost the unit. And next turn the opponent needs to kill them, right? Removing focus from other targets. Or you can just remove them from the battlefield. And if they do a single damage, it's even worse. They need to kill it. And support a unit with the Frost Axe, which are a very powerful ability. It allows to do a lot of damage for very cheap. I think they're very efficient. Overall, I think Frost Axes are very, very powerful. And some people undervalue them in my opinion. But yeah, as you see, I think they're very efficient units. I really like them. So yeah, that's about the Ice Wind. The next one is the Royal Cavalry, which I think everybody knows my opinion at this point. Which is they're kind of the weaker side. I don't love them. They're functional and that's it. I don't know. For sure, it's better than the Archer. I don't know. I can have discussion of somewhere there. Uh, I'm going to. I'm going to actually put it here. The World Cavalry. Basically, I don't like Trample that much, and its stats aren't great either. It's just this is unit that's there. It does its job, and that's it. I'm going to move on from that, and the Front Mage, which I think is one of the best units in the game. Actually, can be here. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Front Mage are a spectacular unit, fully supported. It's hard to value them because they require a lot of support. When they're fully support, they're amazing. Like, you can get a 4/4 for one, and that outvalues everything in the game, but it requires a lot of support, a lot of proper placement. They can be moved around, so I think they are this strong. I think they're one of the best units, and one of the reasons I consider Polar Dwarfs a strong faction. The next one is the Ice Golem, which is very hard to value, definitely for at least an A. The reason they're hard to value is because their support unit has worked on Svara. I don't know, if I try to think about them on other decks, I think the Golem is kind of meh. It's just so strong in Svara that right. It's very hard. So I'm just going to go that there are solid units. I'm going to put it on here. Nothing spectacular. Yeah, they are very scary and very strong in Svara, and I think other decks will use it, just not as well as Svara. The next one is Amber Beast from the Phoenix Elves. And I think this is a very solid unit. There's nothing really special about them. I think they're very scary sometimes versus certain factions. Sometimes don't perform so well. But overall, I think they're very solid. I don't have much to say. There are high variance in the situation. Some situations they're extremely good, and others they're but they're never terrible. So I think I like them a little more than Spirit Mages, but I don't think they're as cool as the fighters, which again will surprise some people that they value fighters so much. But that's with this, the Royal Guardian, another very solid unit. Unlike it seems it's a defensive unit, protective, but actually it's a very utility unit. It's a real power, its ability to shove units around, and that's very strong. Kind of like a wine mage, but it does more damage. It also has an engage, which is relevant. I think they're mostly very utility units, very solid. I think they're around here. I like them a lot. My favorite Fennec Elves unit, spoiler. And there comes the Ember Archer, which I think is kind of an A. Almost a V or 2, so yeah, I think it's kind of weak. They only work really in Fennec Elves because Spirit of the Phoenix, because Ember Beast. But overall, I mean, his stats are like a circus unit. Its ability is powerful, but it's not that powerful. They're functional, and that's it. That's all I'm going to say. Its stats are very low, still playable or functional in Infinite Ghost. I know with other decks, without Ember Beast and without Spirit of the Phoenix will make use of it. Or Holias, I forgot about Holias. Another good reason to play Ember Archers. And that's it. And the Ember Mage, the last unit of the Fengals, and I think this will surprise some people, but I strongly dislike this unit. I think they're very weak units. I don't like them. They're supposed to be tough, but they're not really that tough. They're kind of easy to kill, especially for some faction units. I really like to use them. I don't know, it's just the only good thing is that they threaten the Ember Beast, and they combine very well with Holias. But once you remove those two interactions, what you are left is with the kind of weak unit. I don't like it at all. Yeah, again, it does no damage. It has the ability basically does nothing, and it's just I prefer more life. And yeah, they're not. I mean, I think a Frost Shaman is kind of similar, easy to kill and cost the same. And yeah, it has more better combinations. So yeah, there's Ember Mage. I don't like it. The Cultist, I'm going to surprise some people, but I think it's a solid. No, it's actually I think it's a very efficient units. If you saw me play Fallen Kingdom, you know that I played most of them, most of the games. Their gestures provide much value, and the reason is they're very hard to kill without consequences, right? I mean, melee units need to take 1 damage at least, and sometimes you can put them in positions where you can just do 2 damage, and that's crazy. And I've done 3 damage, and that's just insane, giving you value for sacrifice shots. I mean, you can convince me that usually on the bottom of A plus, you can convince me to go somewhere here that I'm overvaluing them, and maybe it's just I don't know. It's just the tier lists are very on the end. You know, my experience so far tells me that go there, but there's a lot of considerations. I think right now that's where I put them. Underwater, I think they're the definition of just solid unit. Just I like them. I don't super love them. I think that's a good spot. They do what they're supposed to do. They do well. You always kind of want it. Sometimes when you can't get the kills, they feel kind of weak. But I've seen some people say they are weak. But on the other hand, when they do what they're supposed to do, they can go insane. They can be extremely crazy. You have seen those 7 attack underwaters, and I think that compensates. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to get fueled, and when they get fueled, they do a lot of damage, and when they don't, they are kind of weak, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, even you consider with the Paladin, which always have 3 strength, sure, but can't the Paladin get to 4, 5, 6? No. Then the war can. And then that war cure, it's very important. So, for red. So yeah, I think they're very solid units. I don't have much to say about them. Then the Carter, which actually it's going to, I don't know if it's a surprise or not, but for a while, believe it or not, I used to value them around here. But they changed my mind over time. The reason is the Carters seem kind of bad, but they're not that bad. They're really... The reason is the to fighters, and the key component of the Carters is not that you just create a unit where the other unit was, but it's not that they create a unit, but they create a unit where the other unit was. And that's extremely powerful in Summer World, at least in Summer World 2nd edition, where the positions and the shape of the battlefield is very important. The Carter shapes that. And you have already the Anthracher, we're going to talk about that in a few seconds. But the power to put that body there with 3 life, it's very powerful. And Carter allows a Fallen Kingdom to still put it in front of gates or in other shapes that put the game more in favor of Fallen Kingdom. I've been surprised with Carters. I think one of honestly, I used to think they're kind of that weak, but now I changed my mind. I think I almost want to put them on solid units. I don't know. I don't think I'm ready for that. I'm not ready for that step, but definitely I'm ready to move them around here. Which is it's crazy for me for saying I almost don't want to do it, but my experience with them is they do a lot. They have been stars in matchups in ways that I didn't really foresee before. So yeah, this have been like the biggest shape in my opinion of cars. And honestly, even my past might be conditioning me myself to not put it as a solid unit, because I've been performing very well for me, and I think they're very good, very good. The problem is when you miss. Sometimes you send the cover out, you need to kill the target and you miss, and then that's a disaster. I think that's what keeps me from moving them up. Next one is then the Archer, which will again maybe surprise some people, but yeah, I think that the Archer is a marginal value unit. I mean, the reason is obvious. I think the stats are extremely low, and yes, its ability is very powerful. One of the reasons, for the reason I say about the fighter and the card is still positions, but you still position with the true life unit. Easier to kill, and it's very expensive, like those two. I think the value of Tender Archer really is mostly bring out by red. I think it's going to be very rare to see them offside red, and the reason is that in red you can raise them from very far from wherever you need them and bring them and just shamble around the battlefield, and that has a lot of value. But if you remove that, and that's an ability of red, not of the Undead Archer, I think you're left with a very weak unit. Even if it's a powerful ability. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously that power with red is what has kept them as they are. But if you try to be a little more, analyze them a little more in a vacuum, I think they belong to B. They're very weak. Yeah, I don't think there is much else to say. The Horklinger, again, this will be surprising to no one because I don't like them much. And I think it's somewhere around, for sure stronger than the Ember Mage. I don't know if it's stronger. I think it's very close with Archer. And the reason the Klinger is so weak to me is that, I mean, stats are not better than these units that are a lot easier to use. And its ability is powerful, for sure, more powerful than the others. But in model is a very, very powerful inability, so to speak. They require, they're situational in the sense that they require a lot of setup, they require the proper position of things, the proper position of units, the proper position of gates. Basically, they require so much work, and the payoff isn't that big. You know, when I speak out loud, it's yeah, I'm going to move them here. It's just I don't like clingers. I think one of the reasons Sneaks has problems as a faction, I mean Goblins, is because they can have the luxury of not playing clingers, and they need to set up the whole game around using them, and that's very costly without a big payoff. So yeah, I don't like them. You can convince me they're even worse than Ember Mages. So Beast Rider, I think they're the definition of solid unit. I don't think anyone goes away saying, wow, they're weak. And I've seen one person once complain that they're too strong, but yeah, I think they're just kind of the definition. They're very in the middle of the pack. I don't know, I think these are very close units. If you ask me, I prefer them a little more than the Beasts. But they're very close. I mean, this is just decimal point of strength. I mean, if you ask me 10 minutes later, maybe we should put them here, and it really depends. It really depends. I don't think it's important. Good stats. I mean, kind of weak stats, but a very powerful ability. Most important, they come in with doing 4 strength, and that's a lot. They move far. I think they're very, very, very solid units. Just, I don't think there is much else to say. Nobody really disagrees. The first thing, this will be surprised to some people that I don't think they're a solid unit. I think there's another problem with sneaks, and I think they're very needed in sneaks, but also very marginal. Did they do their job? And let's say that's all they do. I think they're a little game shaping than this. I don't know. It's just I think that's a good position. Did they change a little? I mean, you can convince me to go a little higher on the MNS, but I don't think I can be convinced right now that they are solid units. They're too easy to kill, and the fact Sneaks needs them, but at the same kind of the Clingers needs them, but they need something that is very hard to use, and yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of them. Just one life is too easy to kill, especially without attacks, and that's brutal. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. The Horde Climber, which I'm going to surprise people by saying is my favorite cave alien. I think Climbers are really good. 3 life for 0 killing is very annoying, and that's what they're supposed to do. They're distractions, and they're very annoying distractions. But I'm lying a little. They have to some problem that the Ice Golem. They're very strong, but they're very strong in sneaks. Because their one attack is not a threat, they need a threat, and they need something, right? Like the Klinger, like sneaks, they're very... They're solid units, they're very strong units, but they need the right deck, the right situation. I don't think... It's going to be hard to see Climbers outside of sneaks, but I think they're amazing snakes. They're the key to unit that keeps snakes afloat. And the amount of threat they put for so little cost is really exceptional. And because of that, I think they're very strong. But yeah, I actually prefer the Ice Columns. I think they're going to be... I think here is the right spot for them. Only Breakers left. This might be a surprise to you or not, but the Seaver is actually huge for me. It's it's too strong. You can convince me when it's higher than that. It's just they're ridiculous. They're for one magic. The amount of life they can take, the amount of life they provide, their health is amazing. Combined with Stupefy, Engage is annoying, but Stupefy doesn't only work on them, but any other unit. Like, you can protect other units, and that makes them, you can ignore them. Kind of does some problem that with the Citadel Knight. They're not so hard to ignore, but if you see the magic life ratio is actually higher than the Knight. So yeah, I think they're very close. For now, I think they're weaker, but you can convince me that I'm wrong, and very easy to convince me that I'm wrong and they're stronger. Very close. It's still one of the best units in the game. Too much health value for its cost, basically. The Mind Witch is definitely on the strong side. I don't think it's an S, but I think this is solid here. It's one of the best units. It's kind of situational. Well, they're situational, but when they're strong, they're very strong. When they copy certain abilities, they just seem unfair. So again, could be easily convinced that they're on the top and maybe top there. I just think that often they don't. You don't see the payoff. Yeah, the ability to copy certain abilities like Swift Shot, like Frost Mage, Underwater, Relentless, just too strong. So the next one is Wine Mage. A lot of people know what I think. I think they're the best unit in the game. Citadel Knight may be stronger, but I think right now Wine Mage is stronger. They do everything. Their stats are decent. Having one of the best abilities in the game. They're just they do everything. They work in defense. They work on defense. They work their utility. They do. What's not done. I think they provide too much value for one magic, and I think that's it. And one of the reasons Breakers are, I consider the second best faction right now, is the combination of the Sewer plus Wine Mage. I mean, you have two of the best units in the game that haven't combined spectacularly well, and yeah, actually the rest of the Breakers deck is not that great. It's just okay. It's okay, really, it's just nothing spectacular, but the whole deck is carried by kind of the starting setup. I think it's one of the best starting setups in the game, but mostly by Wine Mage, Deceiver, being two of the best gunners in the game, and being together an exceptional team. And finally, there is a Wine Archer, which might surprise people, might not, I'm not sure. I think it's the weakest of the Breakers units, but it's a solid unit. I mean, I don't love it, but I think it's kind of here. I think it's a very solid unit. It does its job. I just think for its cost, it's a little too easy to kill. And for range, I'm not that impressed. Reach is good. But I mean, it's a solid unit. Any deck is happy, really happy to have them. And yeah, that's it. I think that's everything I have to say about the commons, my evaluation of them. You see, it's a kind of, believe me or not, I don't do this on purpose. But it's kind of like a decent spread of units into center. Or I don't think. I mean, I didn't plan this to end this way, but it's kind of what I think. Yeah, I know what else to say. So I think that's the end of the video.